This morning's Old Testament reading is from the book of Ruth, the 3rd and the 4th chapter. Naomi is acting like a Jewish mother and helping to prepare, Naomi is acting like a Jewish mother, helping to prepare her daughter to have a man in her future. Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, I need to seek some security for you so that it may be well with you. Now here is our kinsman Boaz, with whose young women you have been working. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now wash and anoint yourself and put on your best clothes and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." She said to her, "All that you tell me, I will do." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. They came together. The Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. Then the woman said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord who has left you this day without next of kin, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, is more to you than 7 sons has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him in her bosom and became his nurse. The women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse, the father of David. Here ends the reading from the book of Ruth.
Our Old Testament lesson comes to us from Mark chapter 12, verses 38 through 44. As he taught, he said, "Beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and to have the best seats in the synagogues and places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses, and for the sake of appearance say long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation." He sat down opposite the treasury and watched the crowd putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow came and put 2 small copper coins, which are worth a penny. Then he called his disciples and said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury. For all of them have contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, all she had to live on." This is the word of the Lord. As you might have seen in the teaser on Friday, the title of my sermon is Overrated Superheroes. We'll get to that later. But I first want to thank you all very much for your hospitality. I especially want to thank the search committee for all of the work that they have put in to make this all happen. With that, I have a question for you. can you finish these superhero sayings? I'm here to fight for truth, for justice, and the American way. Good. Now, I'm not sure if any of you will know this, but this is my gift. This is my curse. Who am I? Spider-Man. Growing up, I learned all about superheroes from my older half-brother. Everything from Superman to Ant-Man, Captain America to Thor. In most of these movies and TV shows, the basic plot line begins with learning the backstory of a villain, the everyday life of the superhero. The villain hatches an evil scheme and starts to either destroy the world or control the world. Take your pick. The superhero somehow learns of this plan just before the villain enacts it. Somewhere here, the hero must also overcome some personal conflict within themselves or with others in order to fight the bad guy. By this point, it looks like a close one. Will the superhero save the world in the nick of time? They do, but not without the help of their superpowers and sometimes the help of others. Sound pretty correct? While I still like these movies and TV shows, I am often left wondering, well, what happens to the people that are saved? As a girl growing up, I always wondered where the girl superheroes were. Do women always have to be the helpless damsels in distress? For example, and well, for that matter, do children, do the disabled, those who are elderly, why do they have to be the, quote, damsel in distress? So often when we talk about helping the powerless, talking about superheroes, it's always kind of a us versus them. It creates a division of the haves and the have-nots. This is where Jesus turns our thinking and our world upside down. Which brings me to our gospel lesson from Mark. Often this passage is used as an example for the goal of abundant giving to the church, to give till it hurts, so that, yes, you'll have enough money to pay the bills, but maybe not to get the new iPhone 6S, the largest house on the block, or the newest car. However, I think we are not giving the writer of Mark enough credit here. This morning, I invite us to go deeper. First off, we begin with setting up the story with verses 38 through 40. Jesus issues a warning to the scribes with their long prayer robes, praying on the streets, that what they are doing is really a false piety. More specifically, in verse 40, he states, they devour widows' houses, for the sake of appearance, say long prayers. They will receive the greater condemnation. After saying this, who shows up but a widow whose home was probably devoured by the scribes? And she still gave the temple what was left of what she had. The temple scribes are taking advantage of the very people that they are charged to protect. They are not following the words of the prophets like Isaiah or Micah by caring for the orphan, the widow, the poor. While Jesus was critical of his own tradition of Judaism. Unfortunately, this practice has continued in many different ways throughout Christianity. Today, we look no further than our own television sets to see the work of televangelists. They convince people with cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and other illnesses to give money to them instead of using it for life-saving treatments. So-called charities that contact you over the phone or even through the mail sometimes try to pull on your heartstrings to give sometimes thousands of dollars, and once you have given over these thousands of dollars, you realize it was a scam. Each night we see on the evening news all of these injustices, and even more every day. We almost become numb. There are such large problems that feel insurmountable. It would take a superhero to save the day. As disciples of Christ, however, we are called to seek justice for those who are powerless. Sometimes it can feel like we have to be a superhero to solve all the world's problems. After all, we're following Jesus, right? But I ask you, how are we called to be? We have more resources than you think, sitting in this very room. Now, I'm not talking about billfolds or bank accounts, but something more valuable: community, our wider networks of who we know, our compassion for the other. This week in Sojourners magazine, Jennifer Hollis interviewed sociologist Dr. Susan Sered of Suffolk University about how churches don't understand how they can help marginalized women. And talking with those who have been raped, victims of domestic violence, imprisoned, loss of home or children, suffer from addiction, and those in chronic pain, the greatest disparity Dr. Sered witnessed was the lack of theology or philosophy to make sense of their suffering. Too often, many programs and churches that seek to help these women are very generous and give to many charities that focus on the immediate needs: food, a place to live, something to rest their head on. And too often, nonprofits focus on self-sufficiency. But I have a problem with this. The problem with this focus is that it does not value what the person can give. Compassion for others who are suffering just like her, and in her own process of helping others, can find purpose and meaning in their experiences. Take, for example, Naomi and Ruth. Naomi was able to make meaning out of her suffering by using what she learned by being a widow in her situation to help Ruth find security in her future. Jesus gave meaning to the suffering of the woman who gave all she had. He used her as an example to the scribes about the ways in which they abuse their powers, affect real people in the community. those who seem powerless and those without any physical possessions still have a lot to give. Today, in the face of the decline of the church in the United States, it still has a lot to give. Still to this day, the only place in society where on a regular basis you can find a gathering of people of all ages, stages, and experience in the world. The church is the place in any town, village, or city that a person can go to believe in something greater than themselves. More specifically, Church of the Apostles, UCC, of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, has so much to give as the body of Christ. For starters, the gift of hospitality. I ask you to not take this as a trite comment, but the way I see and experience it. A spiritual discipline that has meaning. Your hospitality is not centered on making yourselves look good or because you have to, but as a true focus on serving the other. This is what immediately grabbed my attention about this church. Then I read your profile. So much is going on in the life of this church. I had to stop myself in bragging about this church and give a little quick summary because people would stop listening after the third thing. Even when I arrived here and started to meet many of you, I could see a sense of energy about it, wanting to do more. I sensed an excitement about all of what you are doing. There are aspects of the life and facilities that really clued me in that you are a forward-thinking church. One example is the place we are all in right now, the sanctuary. The fact that we are in a circle is a movement within many mainline congregations that says really something about the community, that all of us are important and all of us have gifts to share. It tells me that you are not about hierarchy. And now, secondly, the garden. Providing fresh produce for those who cannot otherwise afford it literally speaks volumes. Churches and communities that I have witnessed are just starting to do this. And now, thirdly, with the preschool, I loved the fact that all of your hallways down here are literally covered from floor to ceiling with children's artwork. Children, young people, are deeply cherished here, not only for who they are, but what they can do, what they can bring. Then, there is your intentional, prayerful thoughtfulness. In taking a tour of the building and grounds, I saw how every aspect, from what was a former broom closet to Raider Park, that everything you have has an outward focus. Continued dedication to the school that you helped build as a church in Honduras. You're continuing a relationship. There is an understanding that these facilities, all that you have, are not for your own use, but as a means of serving others. Yes, churches are in decline over the country. In fact, many are carving gravestones in preparation. But I don't see that here. I see a life of abundant joy and service. I'm excited. It made me excited for ministry. So, with all of that being said, you are not a superhero. But I don't think that's really realistic, don't you? And personally, I think it's a little overrated. And I don't think that's what people really need. What they need is a community, a way of making meaning out of their suffering. People want something real, compassion, a chance to tell their story. As a community, you give so much more than you realize. Amen.